And up, New York Giant fans! Welcome back, Giant fans. Today, we're going to talk about the most important aspect of a modern-day NFL defense, especially with the way the NFL has evolved. It's become a passing league. There's only been one team this year who ran the ball more than they threw it. So it is imperative to get after the quarterback. We're going to, of course, talk about the pass rush. Now, everybody says that the Giants have problems in the secondary, and they certainly do. They have problems in coverage at the linebacker spot. But when you have a pass rush, it covers up a lot of those holes. And we saw it back in the days when they won their Super Bowls, when they had Aaron Ross, R.W. McQuarters, Corey Webster. They didn't have all-stars in the secondary. But the pass rush was so good that it hid a lot of those holes. And the Giants have not been able to get back to that since those Super Bowl days. You go back, you look at their roster over the last 4 years. They've ranked 29th or worse 3 out of the last 4 years. The one year they were in the top 15, they ranked 14th in 2016, and their defense was one of the best in the league. And a lot of that had to do with Olivier Vernon, the huge free agent acquisition they picked up that year, who's been a solid Giant when he's been on the field. The problem is he never is. And the Giants, that is going to be another area of concern this year. What are they going to do with Vernon? He's due to make almost $19 million, and if you cut him, you save $11. So it's an $8 million dead cap hit. So they're going to have to decide what to do with that. But leaving that aside, this year, he was their leading player in sacks. He only played 11 games, but he had 7 sacks. Their rookie, B.J. Hill, was second with 5.5, and the other rookie, Lorenzo Carter, was third with 4. They only had 3 players this year with more than 2 sacks. That's inexcusable, especially in today's modern league NFL. Look at all the players. There's tons of players that get over 15 sacks because there's a lot more opportunities because the quarterbacks are always dropping back to pass. Last year, of course, the Giants brought in James Bettcher, the former defensive coordinator from the Arizona Cardinals. And with Bettcher came a shift from the 4-3 defense to a 3-4. The Giants have not been a 3-4 defense since the Lawrence Taylor days. And with that comes the need to get after the quarterback. Bettcher's defense specifically calls for a lot of blitzes. The Giants blitz more than anybody else in the league, but they rarely got home. That is a huge problem. When you blitz and you don't get home, you're going to get torn to shreds. And yes, granted, a lot of Bettcher's blitzes come from the secondary, this, that, the other thing, but the most important position in a 3-4 defense is the outside linebacker spot because they have to get home, and you need athletic OLBs. That is why they went out and they drafted Lorenzo Carter, who definitely showed spurts, but he's nowhere near being a #1 pass rusher on a defense. We hope he develops into that one day. So the Giants have 2 options, as I said earlier. Find one in the draft, or you get one in free agency, or you do both. And in this video, we're going to get into that. Now, we all know as Giant fans, the Giants have a lot of holes to fill. Specifically, the offensive line, the pass rush, and the secondary. I think those are the 3 biggest needs outside, of course, the aging Eli Manning, but I don't expect them to address the quarterback position in free agency. The Giants don't have a lot of money to spend. Even if they make certain cuts, they're going to have tops $35, $40 million to spend. And these big-ticket free agents at the DN spot are going to cost you upwards of $20 million a season. So I don't expect the Giants to go out there and get what I call the big 5. There's 5 big names on this list. And on top of that, I don't expect most of these guys to even become available. Odds are it's very possible all 5 become franchise. But the big names on this list, of course, are Tank Lawrence from the Dallas Cowboys. Tank Lawrence, the last 2 years, has really broken out, and he would fit perfectly in the 3-4 defense, and he would revolutionize this defense. He is a complete pass rusher. He's good against the pass. He's good against the run. But I expect Dallas to franchise him for a 2nd straight year, which would put him in the $19 to $20 million range. The next guy up, of course, is Frank Clark, the next big name. He had a breakout year last year for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, he would fit perfectly. He would be a dynamic pass rusher. He's actually reminiscent of O.C. Umenyior, very athletic, could get after the quarterback. He used to be a situational pass rusher for Seattle, and he still would get double-digit sacks. Now he's become more of a full-time role. But again, I don't expect him to become available. Another name that you hear, of course, is Jadeveon Clowney, the former #1 overall pick. But once again, he is too talented. He has gotten hurt a lot, but he's good against both the run and pass, and I expect the Texans to go and franchise him for about $17 million a year. And the same can be said for Trey Flowers and D Ford. Both of those players are imperative to their defenses. So as Giant fans, we need to get that thought out of our head. Those big 5, they're not coming here, in my opinion. The Giants are going to have to look for a more cost-effective guy with potentially some upside, maybe a veteran to bring in. Those are your 2 options, and let's jump right into it. So we'll start with the veteran route, and it is a route that Dave Gettleman took last year when he brought in Connor Barwin. And we all saw how that worked out. It was a miserable failure. Barwin has since been cut to save up $1.5 million on this year's cap. along with the other veteran that he brought in at the running back spot, Jonathan Stewart, who saved them 2.5. They saved a combined 4 to go out and spend on this year's free agent class. Now, they probably went with Barham because he was very cost-effective, and they thought he would bring some veteran leadership, which is definitely possible if you go the veteran route at this position. I personally think the Giants need young, athletic players on the defense, but they may go this route, and there are some interesting names. You have Brandon Graham, of course, who plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, who was a huge part of that Super Bowl run. Now, it is very possible that the Eagles bring this guy back, but if they don't and he becomes available, maybe the Giants have some interest. He's going to be a little bit cheaper than those other names I mentioned because of his age. I would guess $12, maybe $13 million. But if I'm the Giants, I pass on all these guys. I'm just going to go over the names. Sportrack actually projected Graham to make $16 million a season, which if the market thins out, if all these guys are franchise tag, it's very possible he could make that. And to me, the Giants, that's out of their price range. The next guy up is Derek Morgan. Morgan would be more of a veteran guy. He's been fairly productive throughout his career, the Tennessee Titan. And if he becomes available, maybe the Giants go out. They spend $6, $7, $8 million on him. Brian Arakpo is another name. Same story. Cameron Wake is 36 years old. As good as Cameron Wake has been, and he is still a good player, I'm not bringing a 36-year-old player to this defense. And the same could be said for the Terrell Suggses, the Julius Peppers, and the Clay Matthews. I want no part of those guys. Now, a good chance Suggs finishes his career with the Ravens, if he even comes back. And Clay Matthews, Peppers, they've been getting worse as the career's gone along. And that only made sense as Father Time has caught up with them. So if I'm the Giants, I don't elect to go this route, but it's possible they do. They may not have enough money, and they may elect to sign one of these players. The route that I would take if I was Dave Gettleman, and the route that I think the New York Giants should and probably will take at the pass rusher spot, if, of course, there's enough money that becomes available and they decide that this is a position that is of need, and they definitely should feel that way. Like I said, they were 30th in sacks last year. But the route that I would take would be youth and guys that maybe haven't hit their full potential yet. Guys that you think could break out. Maybe guys with off-the-field issues that teams want to stay away from. You take a flyer on them on a 1 or 2 year deal. And I came up with a list of 6 names. The first name I will say is Shaquille Barrett from the Denver Broncos. Barrett last year, of course, got supplanted by the rookie Bradley Chubb in the starting lineup. Barrett was a good player for the Broncos before then. Not great, but he has some upside. And he actually had a ton of QB pressures the year before in 2017. I think he was top 10 or 15 in the league. So I like Shaquille Barrett on a cost-effective deal. Of course, I'm not going to spend $12, $13, $14 million. But if I could get him between 8 and 10, that's a guy I'm looking at. The next guy I have up is Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler, of course, had some off-the-field issues, and he didn't fit the Jacksonville Jaguars because, quite frankly, they had too much talent. So they shipped him off for a draft pick. If he becomes available, he is a guy that if I'm the Giants, I may have some interest in. Definitely has some upside. The next guy I had up was Aaron Lynch. He's had off-the-field issues, but he has some talent. He had a couple of 6 or 7 sack seasons. He's still relatively young. He fits the system nicely. Not a guy that I think is going to break out and be a superstar, but he's reliable. And for God's sakes, if he had 6 or 7 sacks, he would have been second on the team last year, as embarrassing as that is. Preston Smith's another guy I had on there. Preston Smith, not a huge ceiling, but what I like about Preston Smith, super reliable. He plays 16 games every season. You know he's going to be on the field, and he is not an injury concern, knock on wood. Shane Ray is the opposite. Shane Ray has maybe a higher ceiling than Preston Smith, but the problem with Shane Ray is he's never on the field. He gets hurt too much. So he, of the 6 names I came up with, is the guy I would stay away from, actually. And then the last guy I have on the list is the guy I like by far the most. Because last year was his best year. He's still young. He's 26, 27. Zadarius Smith of the Baltimore Ravens. He had 8.5 sacks last year. He had 70 QB pressures, which ranks 17th in the league. He's still young, and I like him. He's athletic. He can get after the quarterback. I like him a lot. He is a guy, if I'm the Giants, I'm targeting. Between $8 to $12 million, if I could get him for that, I think he would help this defense a lot. I think he's probably going to be highly coveted, especially if a lot of those big-ticket guys are kept via the franchise tag. So he may go for more than what the Giants are willing to spend. But if you could get him in that price range, I think he fits perfectly. That is the guy that would be #1 on my list. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, tell me your thoughts. Where do you think the Giants should go? Maybe you disagree. Do you think some of these big-ticket guys may become available? And if they do, would you be willing to spend $18 to $20 million? Because that's what it's going to cost. So half your cap. So I'm curious to get your thoughts. As always, cheers.